Happy Wealth Wednesday, Angela. So excited to have you here. The work you're doing in financing women and fertility is so inspirational and such an interesting spin on this topic. So, very grateful for the work you're doing and for you to be joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Alana. It's a pleasure.
So, I would love if you could just kick off just sharing a little bit about you, your background, how you got into this space.
Yeah, it's great to be here. I love talking about financial planning and especially helping women to think about their finances. It's a personal passion of mine. Both my parents are immigrants, so I'm first generation American. And I think growing up in an immigrant household, we were a lot more risk averse to investing than what I see a lot of American families pursuing. So it's been a real journey for me to build out a portfolio and kind of learn about different options, everything from startups, since I'm now building my second startup fintech business, to more traditional assets. I'm really casting a wide net. So it's been a very fun educational process for me and something that I really encourage women to talk about more.
And do you remember what your first ever investment was or what got you started?
Yes, I was thinking about this recently. When I turned 13 for my bat mitzvah, I actually got some gold coins. So physical golds, I've come a long ways, and now I'm a big fan of crypto and alternatives. But yeah, I think I still have those stored safely. So they've been slowly growing, those couple of coins.
Now what you're doing is really interesting. Like you mentioned, second startup. I would love if you could share a little bit about how and why you got into this fintech space in general.
Fintech has been an area of interest for me for quite some time, really the intersection of health and fintech. So, my academic background's in reproductive health. I thought briefly about being a doctor, but I always felt like there was a lot of opportunity for me and my interests to have a bigger impact on the business side of healthcare. So, my first company was a platform to help people donate philanthropically internationally, primarily global health NGOs. And then over the last couple of years, I switched paths a little bit and started working on fertility here in the US. For me, many of my friends, and I'm sure for many of the folks watching this, fertility is becoming a growing topic of concern and consideration as we think about freezing our eggs, delay family planning. I've personally frozen my eggs and seen what a big cost that is. But more broadly, I was a director at a major fertility company and just saw a lot of our own clients struggling to afford these services. So we approached a lot of big traditional banks and asked them if they would help us offer loans or payment plans for our clients as they were pursuing IVF, egg freezing, surrogacy. And many of them thought it was just too risky of a product. I mean, women's health is historically underinvested in. So I'm not surprised that was the case. So my team and I decided to build our own lending company, Origin Finance, which we've been working on for a while now. And it's just seen incredible growth. We've been really, really excited by the demand. And now a lot more traditional lenders are looking into the space. And that interest has really just started to grow over the last couple of years. So we were excited to help people have this other option. And I'm really thrilled to see this industry expanding now with more options for fertility financing.
What role you play in the wealth space and why it's important.
Yeah, I mean, fertility is really something that I think women should see as an area and an opportunity to invest in themselves, particularly with egg freezing. It's an option for us to have more control over our path in our lives. Historically, I think women basically had like a 10-year window from age 25 to 35 to figure out their career, graduate degree, and family. And now the investment of freezing your eggs or embryos can give you a lot longer of a runway before you have to pack all of that in. So we've seen tremendous growth in egg freezing over the past year and a half. This technology was actually only deemed non-experimental in 2011, so it's quite new. And during COVID, most clinics saw a 35 to 50% increase in demand, which is really phenomenal. So I'm thrilled that women are investing in this, women and families are investing in this more. And Origin helps with payment plans to freeze your eggs starting at about $250 a month.
Leading into this next piece, then, what do you think is the most exciting thing you've learned and you would want other people to know?
One advice that I would love to spread the word on is it's never too early to start preparing for your fertility journey. So if you have the resources or are open to working with Origin to fund your journey, freezing your eggs in your late 20s or even early 30s is a really, really wise option for women. Um, I myself and many of my friends didn't start looking into it until our mid to late 30s. And at that point, both the quality and quantity diminishes. So, for example, we work with egg donors, so women who are donating their eggs to other couples. And most companies won't even work with an egg donor that's past the age of 30. So it's really critical to think about this as soon as possible and just have it. It's not a guaranteed insurance, but it could be a helpful option just to give you that peace of mind and flexibility.
So, is there a person or a company in this space that really inspires you, or just in the fintech space more broadly?
Yeah, I mean, within fertility, I think there's been a lot of innovation. I'm very excited about not only the startups in this space, but a lot of female investors that seem to be pursuing more investing in health and women's health generally. A little bit outside of the fertility field, but one female investor who's been focused on mental health is a dear friend of mine, Dina Burkett-Baeva, who runs one of the first funds focused on psychedelics. So I really think it's exciting when women investors pave the way for more female founders, and they bring kind of I think oftentimes a deeper look on health, mental health, women's health than some of their male counterparts. So yeah, I think that's really exciting. I do want to caveat all the advice I've given. I'm not a doctor, so I would say each woman is different, and you should definitely speak to a medical provider to get a better sense as to what's right for you and your body. But hopefully, what I shared is just a little bit of food for thought to get people to start to do some research and figure out what's right for them.
What advice would you give to somebody getting started thinking about fertility as an investment?
Well, for egg freezing specifically, I can run through some of the numbers quickly. It might be helpful to get a little more concrete. Egg freezing round typically will cost between 6,000, 6,500 to 11, 12,000 plus medication, which is a few $1,000s more. And a lot of times, if you do 2 cycles, there would be a discount from your clinic. And it typically takes about 2 months to go through the process. It's really hard to provide a rule of thumb because there's so much variance for women on how many rounds will get you how many babies. I think it's best to start with an ultrasound and see what your doctor thinks. But very roughly speaking, a woman under 35 might be able to harvest about 15 eggs, and then about 11 of those would survive the thawing process. Maybe 8 or 7 would be fertilized into embryos. Maybe 4 of them would be normal. And then you would try to use those to have a baby. So there's a large drop off rate, which is why the sooner the better. So hopefully that gives a little bit of a sense of timing, cost, and potential results if you were to make this investment.
And so, is there anything else we should know? How can we keep in touch and follow what you're doing, both as consumers potentially, but even investors? As you mentioned, like this is a whole industry of debt financing. How can people think about that in their own portfolio and world?
Yeah, that is a great question. In terms of following what we're doing, my company is originfinance.com. We have a lot of resources available for women who want information on clinics in their area or just how to make this investment for themselves and how to take out a loan. If you are thinking as an investor about the fertility space, there was just an article this week on Crunchbase about how the fertility sector is seeing record investments from a venture perspective. So I think that femtech, sex tech, it's also called, is a very exciting area to keep on your radar if you are doing any early stage investing. There aren't a whole lot of venture funds focused on that just yet, but many are starting to add this to their portfolio or expand, or new funds are starting to emerge that are focused on femtech and sex tech. So I would certainly consider adding a small sliver of that to your portfolio because I think it's poised for tremendous growth over the coming decade.
Fantastic, Angela. Thank you for sharing everything. It's amazing knowledge and just the role model that you are in the space. We'll definitely be following along and just very grateful for you.
Thank you so much. I hope this is helpful, and I'm personally happy to chat with anyone who has questions about their fertility journey. Thanks for having me, Alana. This is great.